Okay, so get this. I was online, right?
Good.
Looking for a new journal because that's how I spend my free time, obviously.
Of course, who doesn't?
And I stumble across this blog post all about spirituality. Kind of random, right?
Right.
But also, like, perfect because we talk a lot about spirituality.
Yeah.
It got me thinking, what does it even mean? Like, really mean to each of us, you know?
It's one of those questions that's always evolving, isn't it? And I think that's what makes it so intriguing.
Totally. Which is why this blog post got my eye. It's called 50 Journal Prompts for Those Exploring the Spiritual World. Catchy, right?
That's definitely attention grabbing.
It's by Clara Penrose, and it was published just this past April, so it's super recent, on a website that sells journals. Talk about meta, right?
That's amazing. Finding inspiration in the most unexpected places. But it makes sense, though, doesn't it? Journaling and self-reflection, they go hand in hand with exploring spirituality.
Totally. And this blog dives right in. Like the very first prompt asks, what does spirituality mean to you?
I like that. It's putting the focus on personal understanding rather than trying to define it based on some external source. It's like Clara saying, hey, this is your journey. Let's figure out what it means for you.
Exactly. So no right or wrong answers here.
Exactly. But exploring different perspectives can be helpful. I mean, when you look at various traditions, you see spirituality associated with connecting to something bigger than oneself, or even the search for meaning and purpose. Sometimes it can be as simple as tapping into your own inner wisdom. There's something for everyone, really.
Right? Like what resonates with one person might not do anything for someone else.
Exactly.
It's like that saying, there are many paths up the mountain, but the view from the top is the same.
I like that. And these prompts, they're kind of like trail markers, guiding you along your own unique path.
Okay, so I noticed Clara structured the prompts into 5 categories. And the first one where that initial question lives is your spiritual discoveries.
Which makes sense. It's like laying the groundwork before you start building a house. You need a solid foundation.
Exactly.
Because so often we jump into different practices or beliefs without really understanding where we're starting from.
That's so true. You need to know what you're working with, right? And speaking of digging deep, there's this other prompt in your spiritual discovery section that really resonated with me. It asks, describe a moment when you felt a deep spiritual connection. That prompt, describe a moment where you felt a deep spiritual connection.
It just takes me right back. I mean, I'm picturing it so clearly.
Oh, I'm intrigued. What comes to mind?
Okay, so a few years back, I was hiking in the Redwoods. Have you ever been?
They're incredible.
Absolutely majestic. So I'm standing there, surrounded by these ancient, giant trees, and I'm just overcome with this wave of peace. It's hard to explain, but it was like in that moment, I was connected to something so much greater than myself, something timeless, you know?
It sounds like you experienced what some people call a thin place, like where the line between the ordinary world and something more extraordinary kind of blurs. Yes, that's the perfect way to put it. It wasn't some big dramatic thing. It was this quiet shift in how I was seeing everything.
It's about tuning into those subtle but really profound moments. And I think that's what makes that prompt so powerful. It makes you really stop and reflect on those experiences you might otherwise just kind of brush past.
Yes. Like, don't get me wrong, I've always loved nature, but that experience in the Redwoods, that really changed how I understood what a spiritual connection could be.
It's like those moments give us a peek into a deeper reality, right? And we're left trying to figure out how to bring that back into our everyday lives. That's where practices and rituals and things like that come in.
Which actually brings us to the next category in Clara's blog post, spiritual practices. And I have to say, I was excited to see it wasn't all just meditation and yoga. Don't get me wrong, those are important, but there's more to it.
Right. And this one prompt in particular stood out to me. It asks, what music moves you spiritually? Which I think speaks to how art can be a spiritual practice.
100%. Music just bypasses all that logical thinking and goes straight for your emotions.
Exactly. It can create this feeling of transcendence, of connection, even just pure joy. And it's not just listening, right? Creating music, whether you're singing, playing an instrument, even just drumming on your steering wheel, that can be spiritual too.
Love that. And the blog post touches on other practices too,
Right.
like spending time in nature, which obviously we've touched on, but then also creating rituals, practicing gratitude, even just thinking about the physical spaces where you feel most connected to something bigger.
It's realizing that spirituality isn't limited to a specific time or place. It can be woven into those everyday moments.
Totally. It's like Clara's giving you a toolbox, and you get to pick and choose which tools you connect with the most to build your own path.
Exactly. There's no one-size-fits-all approach. It's all about finding what feels authentic for you.
And okay, so obviously we've only scratched the surface here. There are 3 more sections in the blog post I want to at least mention. Spiritual questions, connecting with the spiritual world, and living a spiritual life.
It's quite a range, each one offering a new perspective on the spiritual journey.
Right. And there are some seriously thought-provoking prompts in there. Like in the spiritual questions section, there's one that asks, what are you most afraid of when it comes to exploring spirituality?
Oh, wow. That's a powerful one.
Right. Like what are those internal roadblocks holding us back?
Exactly.
And then in the connecting with the spiritual world section, there's this prompt that asks, if you could ask the universe one question, what would it be?
I love that.
Right. What would you even ask?
It really makes you think.
Okay, and last but not least, in that final category, living a spiritual life, there's a prompt that asks, how can you be more mindful and intentional in your everyday routine? Which I thought was a great way to kind of bring it all together.
Because at the end of the day, spirituality isn't just about those profound, out there experiences. It's about how you take those insights and live them out in your daily life.
Bringing that connection full circle.
Exactly.
And Clara ends the whole post on such a great note.
Mm.
It's like she's saying this isn't a race. It's like she's saying this isn't a race. It's about the journey.
It really is. And she actually says something like that at the end. She's like, remember, your spiritual journey is unique and personal. There's no right or wrong way to explore it.
I love that. No judgment.
Yeah, just trust your intuition, be open to new experiences, and enjoy the process of discovery.
Such good advice.
Yeah.
Makes you want to grab a journal and get started.
Right. And you know what? Thinking back on all these prompts, it's tough to pick just one.
I know, right? So many good ones.
But if I had to choose, that one about identifying your fears around spirituality really stuck with me.
That one's intense.
It is. But also, really important to think about, why are we holding back? What are we afraid of? It's so true. What about you? Any of them really stand out, honestly. I keep going back to that one about describing a moment you felt deeply spiritually connected. It's made me realize just how many of those moments I've actually had, but maybe not fully appreciated. Yeah, that time in the Redwoods, for sure. But also smaller things. Just the other day, watching the sunset, I had this moment of pure awe. It was amazing.
It's those little glimpses, right?
So
They can be so powerful.
Exactly. And I think these prompts, they give you a way to hold on to those moments and explore them a little deeper.
Totally. They make you pay attention to the things you might otherwise miss in the day-to-day.
It's about being present.
Exactly.
Well, this has been fascinating. Thanks for diving into all this with me.
Anytime. It's been a great conversation.
Until next time.
See you then.